Hey guys, this is Apostle Ely. Soon we will be interviewing the awesome Afro spiritual, the Hoodoo man. Let me tell you guys are in for a treat. Let me tell you that we are in here to gain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. My name is Apostle Samuel Jr. As you guys join in, make sure you guys, if you have questions, put them in the answer box and I will ask it. All right, brother Mario coming in. All right, you guys are in for a treat because let me tell you something. Once again, we are going to be learning how practitioners, the people that we have heard about in the church world, and they've told us that they were evil and this and that. Hey, Aquarius, thank you for joining us. You're going to learn some things that a lot of things that you have been doing all your life. Pisces, Irene. All right. I saw your video today, girl. I saw you looking good. You're talking some good stuff about that fear. All right. Quintella. All right. Cancer. All right. Y'all chiming in. Now, as when we get ready to prepare, if you guys, once again, do have questions, remember, I'm Apostle Samuel Jr., and my beliefs are deeply rooted in African traditions, and we're having an opportunity to listen to other people that we have never met before or we've never spoken to before and hear some of the very similar things that we grew up in church. I personally started out in the Baptist church, but let me tell you guys something. A lot of things that I practice to this day still are that correlate with my belief system of how I pray, how I use the word of God, how I believe in God. It has not, just because I use different tools or what have you, it doesn't change anything. Once again, you're going to actually find out as listening to them as listening from their perspective of the things that they go through. And a lot of times I think that with this opportunity, we can humanize people and realize a lot of times the things that we say, especially if you grew up in the church, talking about people is what they do. Like they say, praise is what we do. In the church, you could learn from your grandma, your mama, and everybody to talk about people. And whether you know them, whether what you're saying is true or not, you just talk. What we're going to learn today is how to listen from other perspectives, and how for other people to come in and to share their experience, and that we can actually learn from somebody that does this for a living, from somebody that has a per se different energy. He's Scorpio. I have a lot of Scorpio in my chart, in my energy. But you're going to actually hear from a sun sign Scorpio and giving an opportunity. All right. Thank you so much for the gifts, darling. I appreciate that, sweetie. Y'all making a brother feel good. And I wanted to tell you guys that I hope that this is inspiring you to be more authentically of who you are. I hope this is inspiring you to give a listening ear and not allow labels to hinder you from learning from other people. Thank you so much for the likes. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That boosts the views. Hey, how you doing? Is that my Leo? Is that Leo? All right, Leo. All right, y'all on task. That's what I'm talking about. He texted me a little more. He's jumping on, getting himself prepared. Let me tell you something. Thank you for sharing the live as well. This is going to be an opportunity for you guys to understand hoodoo. All right, Sagittarius. Yes. Understanding that hoodoo was something that the enslaved came up with in order to keep their African traditions and belief system going. It's almost like the recipe we learned from grandma or great grandma about sweet potato pie. And then, yes, we may put our own little step on it, but we're supposed to pass those traditions on. A lot of times when you get around other people and other belief systems, you end up losing you. And let's thank God that some Africans were smart enough. All right. He says, send a request. He's here. Brother Mario, how do I do that?
He said, I'm here. He sent a request. You have to accept it.
It didn't come up. Oh, one request. Let me see. Oh, there it is. Okay, I got it. There it is. It's connecting. Hello. Let me see. Make sure I'm. Can you hear me? Afro, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Let's see
Okay,
here.
guys. He's here with us. Let me hope. I'm trying to
Let's
spread
see.
this.
Nope, wrong button.
Yes, it's like a little square box. Okay, this is where it's
Why is
coming.
this so itty bitty? I
Yeah,
know. This is different.
it's really odd. I did an update on my phone, Hey there from East Tennessee.
Mhm.
Thank you for joining us. Now, guys, let me tell you something. I'm not here to talk about me. I am here to talk about this awesome hoodoo man. I've been following him for quite some time. I also been watching your videos. You're very insightful. I wanted them to get the opportunity to hear from somebody that actually does this for a living, and also how much of
Mhm.
your practice has to do with quote unquote the Bible. Because, and the reason why I put those in quotes, because
Mhm.
they don't realize how much faith you have to have in God, how much you have to believe the word of God, you know what I'm saying? And how the different ways of how you
Mhm. Mhm.
and service people. And the truth is, you have more faith in this God that they go to church about than they read about. You know what I'm saying? Like, they
Yeah,
don't
ain't that
realize
the
how
truth?
much it's the truth. Because in order for you to make manifestation and for you to be able to do the workings that you do, I think my girl is here too. All
Mhm.
right. But I think from a Scorpio that planet and that energy,
Mhm.
because even though we practice some of the same things, and I often tell people, you know, that we bring our own energy to it. You know what I'm saying? And you have that strong sexual energy, that and it just that insightful, that hidden truth. Um, so I'm not gonna talk any longer. I want to introduce you guys on my live. I want to introduce you to this hoodoo practitioner. His name, hey y'all, sweet. That's my Libra that stepped in there.
Hello.
Um, I want to introduce you guys to him. I
But
want him to give you guys an opportunity to hear from his lips to your ears. Um, his way of how he practices and some of the things that he do. If you guys got questions, make sure you put them in the comment section. All right, Afro, take it
mm,
away.
before I get into it, let me try to get this thing fixed real quick
Okay.
because I think I know what's going on real quick.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going back out,
Okay.
and then I'm going to rejoin. Okay,
Yes. Okay. No
let's see
problem.
here.
I got a better understanding. I don't know what this updated version is, but guys, let me tell you something. Thank you for making it rain on us, because you know I love to see some money flowing. Okay. All right. So as he gets ready to come back in, but let me tell you guys, you're gonna get an opportunity. Please do. If you're practicing hoodoo or you want to practice into hoodoo, there are so many different ways that our zodiac sign illuminates that energy. So I want to give you guys an opportunity to understand why it is so important for you guys to get that understanding. All right, brother Johnny. All right. I see the Cancer. All right. Thank you for sharing the live. All right. Who is that? Hey, how you doing? What's your zodiac sign? Make sure you guys are posting your zodiac sign. Okay. Thank you for sharing. But there he goes. There it is. That's the one I was normally used to. All right. That's what I'm accustomed to. We got it? Okay. Hey, Gemini, Cancer in the house. Grand Rising from Georgia. All right. Virgo. All right, Scorpio. Oh, you got some Scorpios in the house, so you're gonna really chime in with those. Okay, guys. Once again, I'm gonna turn it over into the hands of my friend, and so he can share his insight to this thing called hoodoo. Okay? Can you hear me? Because I'm not hearing him. I'm gonna. Oh, you're a Capricorn. All right. I'm not hearing you. Yeah, I'm here, but I'm not hearing you. Um, Good afternoon to you guys as well. No, I can't hear you.
I can't hear you.
He can't hear me.
Right.
I'm not. The volume is. I'm able to hear the volume. Can they hear me? Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me on the live? Yeah. Yeah. We're having a little technical difficulty, but we're gonna get okay. Cool. Thank you so much. We're gonna get this together. But I want to tell you, I wanted to some of this book may be familiar with to some of you guys. There's so many different books out there when it comes to hoodoo. But one of the things about these particular books, remember that when you're getting knowledge from books and you're getting knowledge from videos, it is not the same as somebody that grew up practicing hoodoo, because guess what? Books are not going to tell you what to do if somebody reverses something. Books are not going to, it's not going to open its mouth. You got to know how to go into these books and be able to discern whether what you're reading is factual or applicable or not. Also, I have another book here that I've had for years. As he get ready to come back in, it's called Hoodoo Mysteries. This is another good book that I have had for years that we utilize getting information from. But once again, books are a resource of information, no different than Google is, no different than any other form. But if you're not, if it's not in your bloodline, it's not something you grew up practicing. And when I say practicing, that you actually seen works being performed and manifested. Thank you, Kimberly, for sharing my video. Make sure you guys, as you get ready to partake in these particular traditions, you know, I don't like to tell people what to do. I don't know who this is that's trying to come in. Jackson, sorry. But let me explain something to you. It is very, very important that if you want to really practice a tradition, to get with somebody that you can learn as they deal with everyday problems. When you're talking about spirituality and hoodoo, and you're talking about voodoo and Santeria, I'm talking about somebody that actually lives this stuff, that deals with problems with the law, dealing with problems with neighbors, dealing with problems on the job, like knowing how to utilize these Bible verses and the Bible in a way to be able to manifest or to protect, okay? Remember, that's what we're trying to do here. Yeah, there it is. I hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, I hear you real good.
Okay, my connection is unstable.
Okay.
That's weird. What if I go outside? What if I go outside?
Okay.
Because I had to go to your live and
Yeah.
request to join. And that was for some reason.
I hear you hear the feedback? Okay, he's just getting his reception together. Okay.
Let's see. How's this? Is this better?
Yeah, way better. Yeah, okay. This gonna be
No.
working out. You know, anytime this Scorpio energy, this is how this rolls.
Way better? Okay, cool.
Oh yeah, way better. And the backdrop looks good. You look good in the backdrop.
But I can hear you. And you freeze, but
Yeah.
yes, good.
Okay. But we're going to let you go ahead and go on so we can actually get the information and give you an opportunity to share your story. And basically, how did you even get involved in the hoodoo?
I grew up, my grandmother passed it on to me and everything. And I think I feel lucky because of that. Because the main fact is I'm a family of female. So the man, it's like, how to say it. So
you grew up with you grew up in hoodoo based off the your grandmother exposing you to hoodoo. What were some of the things that because like when I saw certain works, I mean, what did you see about what she was doing that impressed you to even get involved?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, the connection.
Cooking in there. Whenever she sit there and be like, "Hey, I need you to go and get my cook," I'll go. Okay, I'll go get your cookbook, and then I'll bring her. I'm like, oh, the big brown thing. Okay, here you go.
The connection is
Was
the connection is
he was all
so basically he grew
in
up.
and out.
Yeah, it's coming in and out.
How's this?
Actually, it sounds better. I can actually hear you.
Better or worse?
I can hear you better.
Okay. Okay, cool. I mean, I'm construction the way that you do. So somebody's actually leaving the house. That's weird.
Somebody said
Um,
trees blocking your signal. Sitting closer to the box will help.
Bye.
The trees are
Give me a
blocking.
second. Relocate again.
Only in Texas. The beef people.
Only in Texas. Let me try going upstairs.
I have trees. Sounds good while you're walking. But as guys, let me explain this. As we go on with this particular interview, let me explain something about hoodoo and why it is so important for
How's
us.
this? You're
Yes.
better? You're weaker?
Actually
Okay,
good.
this is better. Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, let's
Oh,
just
that's
sit
real
down.
good.
Whew. Okay, much better, much better. So, long story short, as I was saying, the way that I noticed my grandmother doing hoodoo and everything is actually in the kitchen with her cooking and everything.
Mhm.
Especially when she sent me off to her bedroom to be like, okay, she would ask me for a cookbook. I'll go and get her cookbook. But the thing is, sometimes every now and again, she'd be like, no, not that cookbook. Bring me my cookbook. And it's like, oh, the big brown book that you keep under the bed? It's like, yes, that one. And I'll go and get it and bring it to her. And she'd be like, thank you, grandson. And I'll go off doing my thing. And I'm like, why does she have two cookbooks? That's when the curiosity started. And I was like, oh, okay.
So it's basically what I'm hearing is like we've always, when it came to our spiritual practice, it's always been a secrecy or a code that we always
Mm-hmm.
spoke in those codes. So even coming up, you personally, there's a certain level of secrecy that actually flows right into your energy. You know what I'm saying? Like, why is
Mm-hmm.
hoodoo is something that is very secretive. It's not. It's mysterious. You know what I'm saying? And what
Mm-hmm.
when it came down to hoodoo, what are some of the things that you saw as a result of her practicing? What, because I got impressed one way. What would, as you saw it, that what was she doing that impressed you as seeing the results behind hoodoo?
Whenever she did any kind of healing work on me for my ailments growing up,
Hmm.
sometimes she wouldn't even have to like give me any kind of food or remedy in the kitchen. She would just lay hands on me. And literally within hours, I'm feeling better. It was as if she just pulled the sickness right on out of me. It was the most miraculous and strangest thing ever. Every single time when I asked her, "How are you doing this? This must be some kind of granny magic or something that's just unique and special to you, or something like that." And she's like, "It's all God, baby. It's all God." And I'm like, "What do you mean? God moved through me, show me where I need to go,
Right.
and then I let him do the rest." I'm like, "Okay, cool."
So how old? I mean, when do you think that you really start getting involved in hoodoo yourself? And because I also want to touch on the fact that we have a lot of people that do not realize they I don't know where we get the perception of hoodoo being evil or of the devil or what have you, but
Oh
you
goodness.
know the church is so drenched in hoodoo. People would not, like, a lot of the most famous preachers that we've heard about all through the years have been practicing hoodoo. You know,
Hmm.
hoodoo in the church was never separate until later on.
Hmm.
So what age do you think that you started? It became very serious to you, and that you started utilizing, and what did you manifest, or what were you working with at that particular time that got you into actually indulging your personal self into hoodoo?
Well, what actually sparked my grandmother to actually start teaching me and like rearing me that way. Oh goodness, it's because how to goodness. A lot of let's just say this. Early on in life, I had to get comfortable with my darkness.
Okay,
Okay, I mean that might be a Scorpio thing. I don't know, but
it
thing
is. It's
is,
a Scorpio thing.
I just had this. Whenever my emotions went out of control, like things would just happen to people.
Mhm.
Whenever my emotions went out of control, it could be that I was really sad or I was really angry. It came out a lot when I was angry and I tried to
Right.
choke it back and not display it.
Right.
Something will always happen. It could be anything from like, something falling over. It could be something like, car tire pop, or it be just they get really sick.
Right.
But when I was a child, more times than not, what actually manifested
Mhm.
was that people trying to speak words at me, trying to speak to me,
Right.
they wouldn't be able to speak. It was as if just something just got locked up right in their throat. That's when my grandmother realized and knew, and was like, "Ooh, you need to. Okay, you inherited. You need to start learning."
Right.
So she started taking me to church and everything. And as a child, I didn't really care for church. Most children don't care for church. You get to
Right.
falling asleep, this, that, and the other. But I started to take it more and more seriously as I got older, around like age 12, age 13, going to church and everything. But the thing is that I was also living in Florida, between Texas and Florida.
Okay.
So if for 2 months over the summer, I will come over to my grandmother's house.
Hmm.
And that's where everything, she would pack in a year's worth of like learning and rearing in 2 months. So it was intensive. I was in that church house literally, I want to say about a good 4 or 5 days a week.
Yeah, it's amazing. What the reason I wanted to bring that up is because when you really see that people that are called to this working, like it's never that they just say up one day and say, I'm gonna do hoodoo. It's like you've been molded and fashioned. Cause I grew up like I am so sick of church. I thought that was the last thing that I would be doing. Trust that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Wow.
I mean, still to this day, I mean, what a lot of people don't know is that I'm still looking for a good church and everything in Texas that I feel at home at.
Mhm.
But it's hard. It's
What
really hard.
if you do not mind, what makes it difficult? Because that's where I'm bridging the gap. I had a young man asking me because he practices the African traditions, and he left the church, but he noticed that I was practicing and I have my own church. And what are the turnoffs? What makes you say a good church or that's not the church for me? Because of your own experience, you have a tangible spiritual experience. What is the turnoff when you go in? What makes you say that's a good church? What makes you say nah, that's not for me?
For me personally, it's when I go into a black church, like you would think that your own people is like, okay, they would have this understanding. But when they start basically denouncing or talking down about the ancestors,
Mm-hmm.
our ancestral practices, what we brought from Africa,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. That's what turns me off the most. And I'm like, so you telling me you want me to sit here and listen to you spit in the face of our ancestors as you say what they did was demonic or the devil or it's not by God?
Right.
I'm leaving. Goodbye. I'm not going to sit here and listen to that. That's the main thing that makes, for me, when it comes to a black church experience, what makes a good church versus a bad church. Don't downplay or talk down about the ancestors. We had to do what we needed to survive, regardless if we kept the practices under wraps in the church or if we full out converted. Don't
Right.
talk down about the ancestors, period.
And why? And I'm gonna ask why, because a lot of times, because we constantly hear about, cause especially the ones that are enlightened about ancestors, like what is the major role or importance of ancestors in your practice, or just acknowledging why is it so important?
Well, aside from the healing and also as a community clearing up community trauma that has happened over slavery and oppression, but also individually as family, connecting with them, like I said, it could heal. They give guidance. They protect. Um, Goodness, a lot of gifts are passed down through the blood of the ancestors. And not only that, just as a whole, it strengthens your family and also strengthens you. One thing my grandmother always told me is that you cannot hope to walk with your back straight in life if you do not have a strong connection with the ancestors.
Wow.
They're your compass. They're your guides. They're your guardians. They also look out for you, but also they're looking out for the family and also for the community as a whole.
I'm going to ask you this as well. Like, when it comes to the Bible, why is the word, why is it that you have a more clearer understanding than basically the person that's up preaching when it comes to the word? Because you utilize your workings with the Bible and you see results versus somebody preaching a Bible, preaching and teaching something, but then there's no healing, there's no deliverance, there's no real protection, you know, because things are not coming to pass. I hear people come to me, it's like, oh my God, I'm not used to getting, like, I'm used to getting prayed for, but I'm just not used to getting healed. I'm used to somebody prophesying to me, I'm just not used to it coming to pass. And they go religiously to church, but here you are with the same Bible with a clear understanding of how to utilize what is given, and you have a better understanding. Could you explain to them why the Bible is such a significant part of your practice?
Well, aside from the Bible, having to hide everything behind the Bible, goodness. Oh, there's a lot to this. Aside from hiding everything behind the Bible and everything, we had to use what we got. We had to hide all our traditions, all our beliefs behind the church, God, the Bible, Jesus Christ. Well, I'm not going to really say God because God, I mean, we had an understanding of God before, like,
All
Christ
this.
came in and all that stuff. So, like, so having to hide behind all that and use what we got. Now, the other aspect to me personally, from my experience, is the ancestors. It's not only me with my deep faith.
Right.
It's everyone that came before me that is praying and working through me and with me. So, and that's another thing. Hoodoo practitioners are not alone. You think you may only see me just praying. It's not just me praying and doing the work. It's my ancestors working through me, flowing through me, speaking with me, praying with me. Like, that's where it's at. So it's not only our belief and strength and conviction in God, but it's also the ancestors. It's a whole commune, whole community praying with you, working with you. That's the reason why it's the results. It's not just me. That's the thing.
So you mean to tell me that I can't go on Amazon and get the root, High John the Conquer root, and get the same results as you because I don't have a connection and I really don't have a understanding of the invisible world? Because you have a very clear understanding of the invisible world. So a lot of
Well,
times,
you can get High John if you wanted to. You can get High John offline, and you might be able to do a little something with it. But if you're not working and have a good connection with your ancestors, a good strong conviction and belief in God, and also working with the spirit of that root, because you can't just sit there and pick it up and be like, okay, work. It's like, no, that is another living being right there. What are you doing? You have to
like really go into that because people don't. I really, because I know you know this. It is not just grabbing a Apollo or a stick or a root. You talk about connecting with the invisible part, which we talk about this all the time in the church. This invisible God, right? But then when it comes down to spirit, we have little understanding that that's the same thing that works through that root. So could you elaborate on that part?
So when you connect to the spirit of the root, you're like literally you're connecting to, okay, what's another way to be able to say this? I am connecting to the piece of God that lives within that root, that is expressed individually based off of the temperament and the personality and spirit of that root.
Come on.
I am connecting to the God that lives within me. God that lives within me, since we all come from Creator.
Right.
Using an aspect of God that lives within me to connect with God that lives within that root. And by working with that root, by giving to that root, by showing gratitude and appreciation, asking if it is willing to work with me, our spirits, the aspects of God that live in me and live in that plant, sync and work in symbiosis to create desired change to come into reality. And the other aspect, you have to have a reflection of the spiritual into the physical. Me making, giving, doing, like literally doing the physical actions to give to that root and seeing that root before me, while at the same time doing the prayers, while at the same time working spirit, moving spirit through me and everything. Both the physical and spiritual has synced up and now mirrors each other. So however, I'm not going to say move that energy, however I just allow the energy to move and flow and guide out of me, that will create the change that is needed. So it's a symbiosis. It is a deep relationship with everything. That's the reason why I don't like using words manipulate, harness, control. I'm like, no, guide, release, allow, flow, give way to, because it's a symbiosis. It's respect, it's veneration, honoring the God that is in me, that is in other things, but also not only that, the ancestors are deeply a part of nature as well.
Right.
So though I'm honoring God in said root that I'm working with, I'm also honoring the ancestors, because the body of the ancestors, they go back to Mother Earth, which feeds the land, which feeds the roots and the plants and the trees, which thus feeds the animals, thus which feeds us, which then our gift to Mother Earth our bodies goes back to the earth, and the cycle continues.
Cycle of life.
God is in everything. Ancestors is in everything. They're not just in your body.
One of the things that one scripture that we and you hear a lot of preachers talk, he's the father of all, in all, through all, and above all. And that's basically this is like the concept of universal law, all is one. You know, I want the people to hear you talk, but these are the things we say each and every day. We get in the church and we go to Bible study, we do all this, but the aspect that is different between them and you is that you're actually connected to that invisible energy, that invisible force, and understanding the mechanics of how to utilize, because it's a science. Once you understand the science, then you get the benefit, you know. And I think that a lot of times that when we are getting people to say that something is evil, you know, if it ain't olive oil, we done. You know, if they not working on olive oil, anything above olive oil is evil. You know what I'm saying? In the church. And I try to explain to people, like, first of all, olive oil comes from an olive tree, which comes from the earth. The same thing you were talking about, Mother Earth. So why would it be different if I use jasmine? Why would it be different if I use frankincense? Why would it be different if I use dragon's blood? Oh, because that's the devil. Well, then you just said that God created everything. You're like, church people don't have a problem living in contradiction. They have absolutely no problem. Thank you guys for
it's as you just said. How can you say that God created everything, but at the same time demonize his creations? Make that make sense.
But in their world, it doesn't have to make sense. I was taught it was wrong, because truth has no place in the life of religion. You know, and I hope that, because there's a lot of people that follow me and follow you that are in the church or they're practicing and they're actually ashamed. You know, and if you don't mind, because I tell people all the time, if you want the ancestors to stand up for you, you got to stand up for them. If you want the spirit to stand up for you, and if they know that you're ashamed, it's like a guy or a girl being with somebody that they don't want nobody to know they're with. They're dealing with them, but you know that's what that's why you get the definition of the side piece. You know, if you don't realize that you are denying, in a sense, or dishonoring them by being ashamed, but you looking for the benefit of them. This is also why people cannot walk in the true power of hoodoo. They can't walk in the true power of spirit, because a part of them feels like what they're doing is wrong, even though we have evidence that it's not. So it's like, how can you truly be a child of God when you deny the God within self? How can you truly be a child of, like they say, the meek shall inherit the earth? How can you inherit the earth when you deny what comes from the earth? How? And they don't have a problem living that contradiction. When you think about practicing with people and they're coming to you, how do you deal with those people that struggle mentally about, they want your help, they're getting your help, they're getting results, but then in the back part of their mind, they demonize it, what you do?
I just sit there and tell them that God that sits most high, supreme creator, is in totality of all things, both merciful and wrathful. And because you are like a child of God, you are a creation of His. You are capable of both those extremes as well. Hence the name being a two-headed doctor. You
Right.
know, I can bless you, I can smite you with the grace of the ancestors and the power of God. Which one do you want? Now, I'll only do either or if it's justified. Anyone is capable of that. Anyone is capable of that. So it's like you read the Bible and it's like God has done all these miracles, both for better or for worse.
Mhm.
You as human are capable of doing things for better and for worse. So what's the issue? How are you going to sit, as you said, you can't take the benefits, but at the same time, keep it at an arm's length as well. If you're not sitting there trying to embrace fully in totality and in
Mhm.
hoodoo practice, there is a lot of good, there's a lot of bad. It comes from a time of oppression. Okay, so you have to do a lot of things. There's a lot of what you would consider to be not the best moral things that has happened in the history of hoodoo and what
But
some
had
hoodoo
to take
practitioners will
place.
do.
Right.
Yes, that had to take place. So it's like, do what you need to. What did God do in the Bible? He did what he needed to. Same thing. It's reflective. Just one is on the micro, the other is on the macro. That is it.
I've used this analogy before, and I always tell people if you go to the Hoodoo Man and you get the job, you call that a blessing. But the person that wanted the job that got blocked from the job because of the work you did, they don't call it a blessing. And that's why I say it's relative depending on what end you are on. You know what I'm saying? And I think that a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
especially coming up in the church, the only reason why you call it a blessing is because you found the $20. But the person that lost the $20 don't call that a blessing. You know what I'm saying? Or,
Mm-hmm.
and people don't realize how they project their raising on people versus the actual truth. Like I know you've
Mm-hmm.
had people come in my lives and like, oh, Jesus loves you, or that's the devil, or abomination of God. And I'm like, first of all, you don't even know this God you're talking about. That's like somebody. That's like me having a conversation with you about your grandmother and I ain't never met her. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't like that, and you like, wait a minute. I grew up with her.
Mm-hmm.
I ate with her. We
Mm-hmm.
slept together. You know what I'm
I,
saying?
I get those people coming into lives all the time whenever I do oracle reads, and then like, Jesus loves you. I'm like, I do know Jesus loved me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for affirming what I already know. Thank you.
When it comes to your readings, what are some of the things that um, when you're trying to help someone, how much does obedience apply? How much does timing apply? And why is it
Hmm.
that people lack the understand? I know there's three questions. But why do people lack the understanding why you're supposed to be reciprocated for your service when it comes to money?
Well, I'll answer this one first because that one's a little straightforward.
Okay.
The reason why I need reciprocation is because my folks do not work for free. They do not work for free. They don't care who you are. Because one thing that my grandmother raised me with, and I still hold true to this day, not all skin folk is kinfolk.
All right. Now.
Sometimes they are more worse than your biggest adversary. So we do not work for free. I
The
don't
people
work
are
for free. I
posting your
used
cash app.
to, and they bit that, huh?
They're posting your cash app in the log. I told them thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I apologize.
So like it's like, no, we don't work for free. We don't care who you are. That's literally it. That's literally it. So if you come wanting our services, it's not, yes, you're paying me, their descendant, that way I can be able to live, of course, but you're also paying them. You're paying them for their time, for their energy. And I've had people not give payment, or they will give payment and then they will take it back after they get their service. And let's just say I have not heard from those people ever since.
Is there is are people up under the notion that that they're able to I don't know if the word hijack, but I think a lot of people think because we don't have their picture or their name or Like they don't realize that the spirit don't need that. The spirit knows exactly where you are. If that person is
Exactly.
authentically a hoodoo man or hoodoo woman, a real witch or a real apostle, whatever they are, if they're truly connected divinely, the spirit already knows. So there's no such
Mm-hmm.
thing as robbing us.
Mm-hmm.
Where does the delusion
They're
come?
robbing themselves.
Yeah, but where does that delusion come from? Have you like why do they? Because I watch other
Ugh.
leaders and workers. Where does that come from? Like you could
You
cheat.
know, that is something that's something I've been trying to figure out for the longest time. I spoke about it with elders in my family. I spoke about it with my grandmother, even my mom. And my mom doesn't even practice. She believes, but she doesn't practice.
Right.
And she's just every single time they say common sense is just not common anymore. Just leave it at that. And I'm like, okay. I mean, so my only assumption is that no matter where you go, no matter what you do,
Mm-hmm.
is you're always going to run into those kind of people, no matter what. And you know, my grandmother, even though she tells me that the ancestors would take care of it,
Mm-hmm.
she just sits there and says, you know what? Just give him to God and let him handle it. Because if you handle it, it's not going to be
That's what
pretty. And
it's
I'm
all
like, that's
about.
true. That's true. If I handle it, it's not going to be pretty. Just give it to God and let that be it.
Wow. Also, because most people, when it comes to hoodoo, they think that the only part of the Bible that you work with is the Book of Psalms. Could you dispel that, please?
No, I work with the full Bible. Now, every now and again, I will go into the New Testament and whatnot, but I stick to the Old Testament. That's what I was raised with and
Mhm.
learned to be able to work through and through with everything because, you know, the Old Testament God was a very wrathful God.
Yeah.
And during the times of slavery and oppression, what do we needed the most?
A
We needed
rap.
a hammer.
Right.
We needed a hammer.
Mhm.
Like, I don't just use Psalms, I use Leviticus, I use Isaiah. If you get into Isaiah, there's some pretty mean stuff up in there.
Isaiah and Jeremiah, Isaiah and
Yeah.
Jeremiah rock your world. Yeah, to
hmm
say the very least.
I use I use Exodus, I use Genesis, I use everything in the Old Testament. Now, when you start getting into the New Testament and stuff like that, that's where I need to sit down and brush up on because I read it twice, but I was only raised with to only work with the Old Testament,
Mhm.
mainly because my grandmother is like, the New Testament's crap. And I'm like, what? I don't understand, Grandma. How's
This
the New
shit is
Testament
crap.
is crap? And she's like, the New Testament God is
You
not
ain't about that
is not the
business.
truth. I know. She is. She's like, the New Testament God is not the same God as the Old Testament. Stick to the Old Testament. It's older. And I'm like, okay.
All righty then. All right, Grandma. I hear you. I hear you. Um, wow. I think that
That's my grandma.
yeah, my trust me, my grandma very rowdy too. I was thinking about when some of the guys who were asking regarding when it comes to hoodoo and the spiritual practice and dealing with people. Um, how do you because we were listening to about the altars, right? And you
hmm
gave a really two of the videos I listened to the altar, and I want to go talk to you. I want to talk about the video that you talked about grounding. You really
hmm
really did really well with that. So we want to talk about.
Thank you.
I also heard the hoodoo Tanya talk about it, but I heard your explanation as well, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to be more clear about ancestor altars and the placement, because a lot of times people are putting ancestors on their altar that don't serve. Like I don't. I think people just hear the word ancestor and they're not realizing that they the same way. Like, could you just what I'm saying? Could you explain that to us that are
Okay, your ancestor, the one thing, the placement of your ancestral altar. Long story short, when it comes to it, the one thing that my grandmother always told me is that go back and think back to the mentality of as if you was on the plantation.
Mhm.
Does it look like you like our ancestors, our enslaved ancestors had the luxury of a different bedroom to be
Right.
able to put an ancestor altar or even have one out showing? Because what if the master came around and everything and saw your ancestral altar? Now you have to answer questions.
Wow.
You can have an ancestral altar in your bedroom. Will it be loud? From my experience, yes, because your ancestral altar is right there where you go to be able to commune. But at the same time, you're an embodiment of your ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
You don't always need an ancestral altar to do your practice because you are your first altar. Your body, your blood is your first ancestral altar. You are a manifestation. You are them in today's time. The
Mm-hmm.
way you live, the way you honor yourself, the way you show gratitude to everything in life and yourself, that right there is enough to be able to venerate your ancestors because you're walking with veneration. The altar is just a physical place where you can go to
Mm-hmm.
do the internal work that is naturally happening within you.
You,
It is a mirror.
the Christ
That
in
is
you,
all an
Jehovah
ancestral
Lord.
altar is. It is a mirror based off of what's going on within you. You don't need an ancestral altar. You can have one. Now, having one, because of its physical representation,
Mm-hmm.
does do great things. Don't get me wrong, because you have something concrete and physically there. Because
Right.
there's a lot of people who struggle with conceptualizing.
Right.
I mean, I'm human. I sometimes struggle with conceptualizing because sometimes I have my own off days. But
I cut out
you,
figures. I do that. I help. That's how I do it.
mhm.
Like.
Like even wearing certain jewelry that your ancestors that comes from those that came before, that can be part of your veneration. Just wearing that like necklace or ring or whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
that's part of your veneration right there. But you can have your ancestral altar anywhere. You can have it in the bedroom. Like your ancestors are not always going to be at the altar. That's number one. Your ancestors are within you.
Right.
So they're going to know what you're doing, but
Exactly.
they're also looking after it like a whole family. They're not always around you 24/7. Now, because you are their descendant, if you ever need them,
Good
all you
call.
have to do is just speak and call, and here they come.
Right. What about the video that you did on grounding? Because I have another question here. It says, I'm going to talk about the grounding, but oh, you late to a party? Oh, she got to go. I'm late to the party. Oh, she's late to the party. It says, don't forget the video of grounding. She said, I'm late to the party. Can you speak on the metaphysical uses of prayer, tongues in the church? We're gonna get to that one, but I want you to once
Mm.
again, if you don't mind, expounding on your video about grounding and why it's important to be able to ground and have that you called it that mental space, that perfect balance between being able to be connected to the divine and also being present, your conscious and your subconscious mind being in unity, in unison. Could you expound on that a
hmm
little more, please?
The reason why you want to be in that space is because that space, that mental scape, is where all things is possible when it comes to doing your work. So basically, it goes back to the understanding that everything is energy. Okay, everything is energy. You can freely move it and this, that, and the other, and whatnot. Okay, you could freely bring things into fruition into this world. Okay, but if you're so stuck in physical understanding, honey, what are you moving?
Nothing.
If you're so stuck in this scene world, what are you moving? What are you doing? Sure, you could pick up like this cord and just chunk it. That's cool. But what are you doing? What are you really doing? But also, the opposite is also true. If you're so far in the spiritual and in the unseen, it's like you go to the extreme of basically, which I literally see some people on
Mhm.
TikTok, and I'm like, wow, you're basically insane at this point.
Right.
You're so ungrounded. You're so far in the experience. What are you doing? And they think that they're actually doing things when actually what's going on is that they're falling prey to their own psyche, to their
Or
own
ego.
imagination. Their spiritual egos is literally just have them so tight around. It's like, honey, you're not doing nothing. You're living in your own fantasy world.
Okay.
So by being in that space, that balance, and it's a thin sliver, you
Mhm.
would not lose touch of the physical, but you would still be able to perceive the spiritual and be in the experience and know what is going on in both extremes at the same time without losing yourself. But
Okay.
the only way to get there is through relaxation. You have to relax into it. Nothing good comes from anything forced.
Do you want to take this one? It says, can you speak to the metaphysical uses of prayer, tongues in the church? And then I got
The
one,
meta
and
the
then we got.
metaphysical uses of prayer tongues in church. Interesting. That's basically goes back to the power of word, to be
Mhm.
honest. That
Okay.
goes back to the power of word, that goes back to vibration, that goes back to like I said, the power of the word,
Mhm.
power of the spoken word, regardless of the language. The power of the spoken word is immense. I mean, when they say be mindful of what you speak, they
That
mean that. Just speaking words is sending energy out. It's spells. You're chanting spells.
right.
So that's the reason why they tell you be careful of what you say, be careful of what words you use, because your own spirit, your own body, your own mind, your own subconscious mind is listening.
Right.
So if you speak ill, what will happen? You will become ill. Might not be physically ill, but ill does not always mean physical sickness.
Right.
If you
All right.
speak gratitude, then what will happen in your life? It will brighten.
Bring.
Gratitude will flow in. And with gratitude, many other blessings come in.
Okay,
It's that simple.
we got another question for here. It says, please explain the importance of being spiritually clean.
Spiritually clean, ooh, that is a big one. Because spiritually clean, not only being spiritually clean, also means being physically clean as well. So,
Let's bring
and that's a
let's
big
get
one.
let's get with it. Let's get with it. Talk about
Because
it. Let's
shoot,
get with it.
because when you're spiritually clean, being spiritually clean is one thing,
Mhm.
okay? But if you walk into your home and your space and it is physically messy, you have to remember the spiritual and the physical worlds are not separate. They are one in the same, and they are reflections of each other. If your physical space is messy, then your spiritual space is going to be messy as well. The energy will be stagnant, it won't be able to flow. You could keep yourself clean and adorned and everything, doing your baths, all that stuff, keeping with it, even doing cleansing and like cleansing rituals every single Sunday if you want. But if that space is still physically dirty, honey, you just wasted your time and your energy and your work. That same stuck energy is still going to be there. So physically unclean does also mean spiritually unclean. However, spiritually unclean does not always mean physically unclean.
Mhm.
Sometimes your physical space can be clean,
Right.
but your spirit is not clean. You're not spiritually clean. And that's because that's where it goes back to the mental and emotional, where it's like, okay, if everything else physically is clean in your life, but you're still having issues and you're spiritually not clean, then you need to address your emotions. You need to address your mindset. You need to address all these things. There's deeper issues going on that you're not seeing. And that's where readers and healers and people like that come in to be able to give you perspective of, well, you're just focusing your energy in the wrong area. This is where you need to be focusing on, and everything will open up.
You think about when it comes to being spiritually clean and why. What is the when you do a cleanse? Because I do see people like for whatever reason people feel like they can go on the internet and what is the difference between being spiritually clean by a spiritualist? Because if you prepare a bath, how does being spiritually clean affect your work? Why do you have to be spiritually clean? That if you want to do a healing for somebody or if you're doing a money work for, why does it matter? Because some people feel like they can prepare these baths for themselves. I really want people to understand there are things that you can do for yourself. I'm not kicking none of that. But then there
Mm-hmm.
are certain things, there are certain levels to this cleanliness that it's important that you get somebody from a professional background, depending on to be able to remove certain negative energy because it does affect your
Mm-hmm.
spiritual work
Mm-hmm.
and moving forward. Whether it's relationship, whether it's getting money, whether it's for protection, you know, what's your take on that? Being spiritually
The
clean and how
reason
it affects your work.
the reason why you want to be spiritually clean as much as possible. Now, don't get me wrong, life is messy. Don't get me wrong, life can be messy. There are times where you can only be as clean as you're able
Mm-hmm.
because of situations going on. And that's where you do need to decide, okay, should I go to someone else who's in a better state of being to be able to do this for me, or can I do this to myself without any repercussions? That's step one. But the reason why you want to be spiritually clean before you go in and do any kind of deep work Because there's work and there's work and then there's deep work.
Mm-hmm.
Work, sometimes you could get away with not being clean 100% of the time, because what if you need to do something in a pinch?
Right.
You don't have time to go and like clean yourself or anything like that. You just have to do what you're able to right then and there.
Right.
But for deep work, you want to be as clean as much as possible, because you don't want any of what is going on with you, both externally or internally, to end up going to your client whatsoever. So let's say that, let's use an example. Let's say that, someone just lost their job and they're a practitioner. Their main job, their main source of income is gone. So they're trying to emotionally and mentally recover from that, but they have a client that they're trying to do a spiritual bath for.
Right.
And they don't clean themselves. Well, the anger, sorrow, or whatever is going on because they lost their main job, it's going to go into that bath. And then they're giving their client that bath, and instead of doing healing, that bath is literally just putting their baggage onto them.
Destructive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's destructive. So that's the reason why you need to be like spiritually clean before going into any work. Like if you need time to like get yourself in a state of being before you go in and do any kind of deep work, take the time. If your client has to go elsewhere because you're taking time, that's fine. Let them go elsewhere. If your client's willing to wait, that's good.
Right.
But make sure that you're together first before you go in and do any kind of deep work.
Very important.
And there's a question on my end. Wasn't there an exemption to the physical clean part since our ancestors lived on the plantation? Yes, there is an exemption to that, but at the same time, even on the plantation, our folks still tried to be clean as much as possible. Like, come on now, we knew how to bathe ourselves before Europeans did.
Exactly. We don't want to take notes out of this from what I hear. I got a question over here. It says, what does it mean when your candle goes out? From King.
I will have to ask more questions on that, as in, okay, how much of herb did you put into your candle? Things like that. How many
can affect it as well. Okay.
Yep. The way that you dress the candle, how you cut the wick, and everything could like affect the candle. So you could cut the wick too short and you try to light it and it shrivels out. You could dress the candle too much, too high with herbs, and it doesn't catch any wax to be able to continue to stay lit. Now, if you do everything right, mosquito, if you do everything right for your candle, trimmed it properly, dressed it just enough, and everything, sealed it, enough oil in there, but not too much, just a little bit of oil if you want to put oil in there. If you've done everything right and it goes out, might not be enough energy behind the work. Might not be enough energy behind the work. Either A or B, your space, you're not clean enough or anything. Your space is not together enough. You might not have set up proper protections or anything like that for the work. Is basically, if that happens and you've done everything right, start over, start from scratch, start from square one, and work all the way back up to that point. Like, retrace your steps and pinpoint what went wrong.
One of the things I want to bring up as well, this is something that I think it will help practitioners, and I think it will help people that go to practitioners. The amount of preparation or the putting a particular work, because we don't have one size fits all. There's some, when it comes to certain workings, whether it's love, whether it's finances or protection, everybody needs different types of protection. There's different levels of that protection. And a lot of times when it comes to paying for certain types of workings, people don't realize, like, depending on what level of strength that you want that practitioner to put into that work is why you're paying what you're paying, or what type of how much you want them to monitor your life. It's no different than you have a life alert. Like, if you want 24-hour service, it's fine, but it's gonna cost you. There's a difference between doing. Thank you so much for the gift. There's a difference between you doing basically putting a bath together versus you're dealing with spirit. Because there's some things that people just want. Just like if you are a plumber, all you had to do is go down to Lowe's or Home Depot and get what you need, because you know how to do it. But if you are not a plumber, if you are not a plumber, then I think it's actually cheaper for you to hire somebody like you guys in order to do the work. Because actually, I'm going to get more for my money because I'm not going buying stuff I may not need, or not buying stuff I need because I can't read. Because most of these people think they can see. I don't know. I get that we all made in God's image and after light, but everybody don't have foresight. Everybody don't have insight. Everybody don't have common sense, and everybody don't have sense at all. Okay? So I don't understand why that, because of internet, that so many people are taking it upon themselves to do so much spiritual work. If I got an issue with my tooth, I'm going to a dentist. Yes, I can raise the dead, I can heal the sick, but I'm not going to work on my mouth. I'm not going to fix my car. That's not my level of expertise. Like, could you explain why it's to me, it's not spiritually sound to be out here self-initiating, out here trying to conjure when you're not a conjurer.
It all goes back to the mentality of most people don't like being told no and they cannot do something. Most people don't like being told that, I'm sorry, you do not have the proper experience to do X, Y, and Z. A lot of people in this world underestimate spiritual work.
Agreed.
They underestimate it. They underestimate the knowledge. They underestimate the experience and the know-how to have behind it to be able to do it. They underestimate the connections. They underestimate everything. Reasons why you hear people end up going missing or like just mysteriously coming up dead because they try to do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, oh, what happened? Well, you knocked on the wrong door and you got the right one. That's literally it.
Could you explain the reason why a practitioner will never tell you his or her secrets? Why could you explain in terms where all those that are really slow that sit on the very back of the bus to the right, why you would no master tells anybody their mysteries like that? Why KFC would never tell you their recipe? You can go home and cook chicken all day long, but it would not be KFC. Like,
well,
why do people?
For one, it's protection. That's the main thing, protection right there. I mean, like, for example, let's take, what example do I want to use? I'm going to use my grandmother as an example. Did she teach me everything? Yeah. But did she teach me everything? Nope. No.
They're not
because even she knows, not only do I have to grow in my practice and grow into myself, but even then, I personally have my own specialities, where she has her own specialities, where she's able to do, I might be either okay at, I might be decent at, or I might not be able to do it altogether because it's not my inclination.
Right.
But also, she has her bag of tricks for her own protection. I have my own bag of tricks for my own protection. Now, not saying that my grandmother would, like, ever lift a hand and like work some meanness on me or anything.
Right.
She did that to try to teach me as I got older and everything. Trust me, that is nothing to play around with. When your elder sits there and turns around, it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to send these things after you. I want you to try to fend them off and break it. This is your learning. Go. Yeah, that's no.
The thing about it, I grew up in a certain type of way that I grew up, and when I grew up, I'm a 70s baby, so it was do as I say. And what I noticed now with a lot of newbies and people that did not grow up with structure, they feel like they can challenge those authorities that be. I just never was like that. My spiritual dad, I learned from family. I learned, I just never was the type of person to challenge their authority. But now I see a lot of people that come along that they feel like they're in a place because either they have money or they're in a place because they feel like you need their money. I don't know what drives that, but I never dealt with it because I grew up in a time where respect was just given. It was just automatic. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So I did what I was told. If I did something that was wrong, I would go run back and say, well, listen, I did this. Even with my spiritual dad, and I'll show him my hand, like this is what I did. He's like, okay, you were good about it, but this right here you shouldn't have did. Like I had that
Mm-hmm.
relationship, so even when I did things in error, I knew who to go to, or if I thought I did something wrong, I knew who to go to because I have my sons that are learning
Mm-hmm.
up under me, so they have the honor of being able to have me be over what they're doing. And if I have to make corrections or insight, they have that. But a lot of these guys out here learning from books and social media and TikTok and all this other stuff, they feel like they can challenge people with the type of pedigree you have and the experience. 'Cause
Mm-hmm.
how much, in your opinion, how much experience plays a part in magic?
Experience plays a heavy part in magic. Like, and there's a lot of young ones out here that is like, age does not mean power. And I'm like, honey, just because you have a natural strong spirit does not mean you have the experience or the knowledge to use that spirit. That doesn't mean anything. Sure, you might have raw potential. That's great. Your output might be phenomenal, but I'm going to approach it from the standpoint of a martial artist
Mm-hmm.
and everything. You could be able to lift like 300 pounds easily, deadlift, all that stuff, be strong and everything. But if you come across someone who has great technique and no body mechanics, it doesn't matter how strong you are.
Yeah,
I
beat you.
can use minimum effort to subdue you in a heartbeat. Your strength does not mean nothing if you don't know how to use it. And
Wow.
that's simply it.
That is, and another thing that I think that is good for people because I've seen people prepare, and this is my humble opinion. I've seen people watch YouTube, TikTok, and all these videos, read books, and make their own protection oil. I think that is so asinine. Um, you There's so many levels to protection, and just put garlic in there and what cayenne pepper or what's another popular one, a cinnamon, and they use this word protection, but with not understanding that there's ways to get around that stuff. Even if you have
Mm-hmm.
spirits with you, there's ways to get around your ancestors. There's ways to get around your angels. There's ways to get like people don't realize like, oh, you got your crystals on. I can get around that.
Mm-hmm.
I can get around your people with they got their ngangas and they have different things or their lekes. A lot of people have gotten their behind whipped with their warrior
Mm-hmm.
because they don't
Mm-hmm.
know realize that that stuff can someone that knows what they're doing can get around it or over it or dismantle it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, could you
Actually had a situation recently.
make your own protection oil?
Say that again. It went out for a second.
Oh, sorry. Do you think it's wisdom to make your own protection oil? Like they're learning off of these videos and books or they bought. And
Making a protection oil that you see online or in a book should be a template or a guideline. It should be a conceptual idea.
Mhm,
Never follow it word for word because that is their recipe that is tailor made for them by them to work for their needs of protection.
mhm,
If you're going to sit down and try to make your own protection oil, you need to understand protection inside and out. You need to understand how certain herbs correlate to each other and how they assist each other constructively. And then you need to understand the formula and the preparation and how long it would take and everything. You can't just whip something together and be like, oh, protection oil. Be like, okay, honey, how long are you feeding that? What are you going to do with it next? Where are you going to root it at in order to be able to, so it could draw on the natural energies to be able to empower it further? What prayers are you doing over it? Are you praying over that thing maybe once a day or 3 times a day, even at night?
mhm,
Like, what's going on? How long are you doing this? Especially when you make a protection oil, any kind of oil, minimum 40 days to 40 nights.
mhm.
It has to sit and
So,
ferment, mix, coalesce, all that stuff. But the whole entire time, you are working with it. You are working it
mhm.
consecutively, minimum 40 days, 40 nights. Some people just throw things together and call it done. And it's like, That is the weakest I have seen. That is nothing.
And you wonder why
No,
your protection is broken.
exactly. I recently had a situation before I came to where I am in Austin. I went out to the local shops.
Mhm.
This one woman and everything was wearing her crystals, and she was over here like, "Oh, I am so protected. I have my black tourmaline, I have my quartz, I have my smoky quartz," and I'm just like, "Honey, you have not fed them in I don't know how long. And just by me taking a little bit of tobacco smoke and blowing on them, I could befriend your stones in a heartbeat, and your protection will be mine, and
Bam.
you're done. You're
Bum.
neglectful. You need to sit down and do something about that."
You know what? I truly appreciate you making that statement because also people don't realize that people can feed your spirits and draw your spirits away from you. People can feed certain egoons. You know, I just think that a lot of people lack a lot of knowledge, and when you blanket say, "Oh, I got protection candle," or "I got protection oil," or "I got a protection bracelet," they don't realize that depending on how that was prepared, and then if you're not able to maintain that protection, it's just like having a smoke alarm that the battery's gone.
Hmm.
You got an alarm in the house, but it ain't working because the battery's gone.
Hmm.
See if they got any
A
more.
lot of these people, a lot of these people who say that I have protections around them, they're great illusionists. I will say that. They walk around with the illusion of protection,
Hmm.
and it comes off as they're protected to people who do not know how to actually see or to discern that. But to those who actually know how to look past that, look past the veil of that illusion, it's like, oh, baby.
You butt naked.
Yeah, you like literally, you're butt naked.
Wow. Now, what if your if you could speak to anybody that wants to get into hoodoo, if you could speak to anybody that wanted a better clarity of why hoodoo would be for them, what could you explain to them about hoodoo that they could follow, especially a beginner? How could what
Hmm.
would be the steps that you would advise them to take in order to grow in hoodoo?
Well, first things first is to ensure that you come from enslaved African Americans of the United States. That is the first things first. And it has to be close enough to you. It can't just be like, "Oh yeah, I'm 2% black and everything, and it's way. It's like, no. I need like you either your grandmother or your great grandmother has to be black first and foremost.
In a
First
story.
and foremost. And then after that, that's where you need to start researching and connecting with your ancestors, wondering about your family, getting the stories, piecing things together because it has to be there in the blood. Because if you don't hear something about like, well, so and so had really strange ways and da 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 da, well, what do you mean by strange ways?
I need to know that.
That's what it is. Start piecing it together because your elders all contain various stories, of course, but also pieces of the greater truth when it comes to the family.
Hmm. Okay. Because I'll give you a time. After four. So let me ask this one last question. We first of all, we really thank you for giving us your time and your knowledge and your expertise in this area. But one of the things that I would like for you to share with people is, if you could, the different types of practices other than just the scripture that, because sometimes people think when hoodoo they only encompass it with the Bible and herb, and there's other things that come along with hoodoo. If you don't
Hmm.
mind sharing other aspects of hoodoo that may not be as common to the mind, as one would think. They should know, but a lot
Hmm.
of people really don't know. They kind of box hoodoo into reading with the Bible and herbs.
Hmm. Who turned on the light? Oh, okay, never mind. Reading with the Bible and herbs. Well, then, uh, let's see here. You have working with the dead. That is One thing of Hoodoo, which I do not recommend for beginners whatsoever. I highly do not. If you don't know what you're doing when it comes to like graves and the dead, just don't even attempt. Like, just leave that alone. Save that for older folk. And let's see here. There's more to it. Let's see here. You could be working with herbs, yes. I mean, but there's two aspects to it. There's root working and root doctoring.
Okay.
Root working, from the way I learned it, root working is working with the spiritual and the magical aspects of the roots and herbs.
Mm-hmm.
While root doctoring is working with the medicinal aspects of the roots and herbs.
Right. Okay.
Both go hand in hand, don't get me wrong. Both are closely, tightly related. But one is more medicinal, the other is more magical.
There you go. Okay.
And then after that, you have the practice of midwives and everything. We all know what midwives are and everything, but a Hoodoo practicing conjure midwife, oh, that's a completely whole different ballgame. That is someone you do not want to cross.
You got a blessing.
You do not want to cross. If a midwife is your ally, keep them your ally. Let's just say that. Keep them your ally. Especially if they are a grandmother or a granny or an older woman. Keep them your ally. Keep them your ally. And then you have treaters and whatnot, which is basically the same thing as something, basically a doctor and whatnot, but you know, same thing as a root doctor, but still they treat common ailments and things like that. Then you have two-headed doctors. Now, two-headed doctors, from the way I learned, has two connotations. Someone who does both conjure and root work, or someone who does both good work and quote-unquote bad work. As in, they will bless you and smite you all at once.
Okay. Definitely.
And there's plenty. The list goes on and on because there's a lot of people out there, like I said, different specialities.
The reason one of the points that I wanted to make to those that are listening is that because you may practice something in a narrow vision, you may think that's all it encompasses, and that is not the truth. It is universal. It is God feels all things, and depending on the experience of that particular practitioner, they may tap into certain things, like you said earlier, that depending on your gift, your talent, or your particular expertise, you just may venture out in one department and more so than the other. So I really thank you for your time. Guys, thank you so much. Guys, if you are not following Afro Spiritual, please do. Let me tell you guys, I will be posting this video on my YouTube channel. Sir, I really appreciate you giving us your time and giving your energy. And we will be posting his Cash App as well. If you want to be a blessing to this Hoodoo man, please follow him, support him. We appreciate each and every one of you guys. And thank you for a lot of you guys hung out all the way through a whole hour of your time. We appreciate that as well. Once again, we want to give it up for him. African Spiritual.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and everything. It is a pleasure. I've been following you for some time, and I'm like, this man knows what he is talking about. I'm like, okay, preach, come on.
He's okay. They're posting it in there. Make sure you guys that Cash App him. I know he would appreciate it. One thing I would do teach people from a biblical perspective. If you're going through something in your life, the quickest way to get something to happen for you is to bless people that are truly anointed and gifted in their talent. And that energy that is on their life, those spirits will bless you back. You cannot lose being a blessing to these spiritual gifted people. Okay? Thank you guys so much. Thank you once again, my Scorpio friend.
Thank you for
and I hope this will not be our last time, but thank you once again.
Oh, no. You see me around.
Yeah, around these parts. All right? Thank you.
No worries. You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.